I've lived with the stigma of mental illness from the first time I was hospitalised when I was 18. I was so afraid of being labelled mad. I was 18 years old. I didn't see myself as a mad person. When I was discharged from hospital back out into the community, I tried to follow the routine of the medication, but the medications 20 years ago were much more devastating to a person's ability to function in society, and I used to walk around like a zombie.
Another day.
Having bipolar, you have episodes of high and low. What would happen is after a high episode, my life would be a mess. I would have lost my job, I would have lost where I was living, I would be on the streets, I had no support. It's very easy to become criminalised, which was what happened to me. Then it was exposure to the criminal justice system and prison. Well, when I first went to prison, they always do ask you when you first go to prison, do you have a mental illness? But you're so afraid, that's the last thing you want to admit. It's better to be bad than mad. So of course you deny that you have a mental illness upon reception in prison, and then you're in another closed society, you've got a new peer group of other inmates. You know, it's very easy to actually hide being mad in prison because the people around you aren't exactly model citizens. But the reality is I would have episodes in prison. I used to try and mask my episodes with exercise to wear myself out, but I would bounce off the walls. Eventually, when I was doing a 10-year sentence, after 9 years, I went into an episode. It was a violent episode. When I realised what I'd done and I became very depressed, and the prison authorities decided to transfer me to the psychiatric prison at Long Bay. When I arrived at the psychiatric prison at Long Bay, well, my thoughts were, how low can a man go? And I put my head in a noose, and luckily I was cut down. And from there, some very kind and caring staff from the prison psychiatric hospital went to a lot of effort to rebuild me as a person. One of the worst insults you could say to another person in prison was, you belong in D ward. D ward then being the psychiatric ward of the prison. And so of course all through those 9 years until I was taken to D ward, I lived with the fear of D ward, and I would hear other prisoners make comments, he's bound for D ward, and just knew that even in prison where we were already the lowest of the low, that there was another level you could go. When I was released from prison, which was many, many years ago, again I went into denial that I had a mental illness and actually saw a lot of my problems as just behavioural adjustments. But eventually I was episodal and I was taken to Rozelle Hospital. To carry the stigma of being mentally ill is to carry a big burden. And so I've always been suspicious of telling people that I have a mental illness. But I'd come to a realisation in my life that if I don't manage this mental illness, it's prison, it's hospitalisation. Luckily for me, I found staff that are very, very good. Canterbury Community Health has managed me in the community. I have a wonderful doctor. I participate in a work skills rehab program. I'd like to participate more in society, but I also realise that a lot of doors are closed to me. I rely strongly on the support of my friends and the mental health services to keep me going there, because I actually have come to an admission with my mental illness that I need help. And that was something that I have to learn with maturity, to actually ask for help. I was like, as a man, I'm tough. I can conquer this illness. I'm proud. I don't want to admit I have an illness. But I've now realised that, with support, I can actually become a better person and participate. It hasn't been easy. Starry, starry night, paint your palettes blue and grey. Thinking about how society manages people with a mental illness, like all things, there's room for improvement. But ignorance is the problem. It's the fact that the wider community doesn't have a knowledge of what a mental illness is. We don't have an open wound. We're not bleeding. We don't have cancer. In my history, I've been labelled schizophrenic, manic depressive, until now finally bipolar. But along with those misdiagnoses was mismedication. Shadows on the hills, sketch the trees and the daffodils, catch the breeze and the winter chills in colours of the snowy linen land. When I was 18, I would never have told people I had a mental illness. Now at 40, as I said, I tell my friends I have a mental illness and they look at me and say, tell me something we don't know, Craig. I actually am now comfortable with a bipolar tag. I realise there is something wrong with me. You don't rob banks, you don't live on the fringes, you don't break into Parliament House and urinate in the Premier's teapot. You know, these are not normal behaviour patterns. I'm now 40 years old and I realise that. I want to live a normal, productive life and try and recapture some of the lost years that were lost to me by not managing my mental illness. Now I understand. We're out on the South Sydney Juniors boat celebrating a friend's 40th birthday, I and a few classmates, and as I piled on the boat, one of my friends looked at me and he said, I hear you're chewing serious medication now, Craig. It's nice to know you're now normal. And I actually find that acceptance from my peer group, that they know I chew medication, which is the way they say it, but they're happy to have me in their company as long as I chew my medication.